If you're a man over 45 and you've noticed that quality women seem interested at first, but then quietly disappear, you're making one catastrophic psychological mistake that broadcasts weakness louder than any words you could say. And today, I'm going to show you exactly what it is and how to fix it before it costs you another decade. Gentlemen, what I'm about to reveal will make you deeply uncomfortable, and that's exactly why you need to hear it. Right now, at this very moment, men your age are unknowingly destroying their chances with remarkable women, not because of their age, their body, or their bank account, but because of a single toxic belief they carry like a disease. This belief poisons every interaction, every date, every relationship before it even begins. The men who understand what I'm about to tell you will dominate the dating landscape at 45, 55, even 65. The men who ignore this will spend their best years invisible and alone. The clock is ticking. Picture this. You're across from her at dinner. Late 30s, intelligent, successful, the kind with options. Conversation flows, she's laughing. Everything seems perfect. Then it happens. You make a seemingly harmless comment. I know I'm not as young as I used to be, but... Or, for my age, I try to stay in shape. In that microsecond, something changes in her eyes. Not disgust, not pity. Something worse, disappointment. The energy shifts. Attraction evaporates like water on hot asphalt. You felt the need to apologize, acknowledge the elephant in the room. But here's the truth that hits like a freight train. There was no elephant until you brought it there. You created the problem you were solving. Most men over 45 walk around with an invisible scarlet letter burned into consciousness. They internalize the message that age is a liability, a deficiency needing explanation and compensation. This internalization, this psychological surrender, is the most destructive force in their romantic lives. The moment you apologize for your existence, you communicate something no quality woman can respect. You announce you see yourself as depreciating, and if you won't invest in yourself at full value, why would she? Here's the cruel irony most men completely miss. The very thing you're apologizing for, your age, your accumulated years, is actually your greatest competitive advantage in the marketplace of attraction. But you've been conditioned, programmed, brainwashed into seeing it as a weakness. A man at 45 or 50 or 55 should be at the peak of his masculine power. You have resources a 25-year-old cannot possess. Experience, battle scars, wisdom earned through decades of victory and defeat, emotional regulation that comes only from weathering real storms, clarity about who you are because you've had time to build yourself brick by brick. You know what matters and what doesn't. This depth, this gravitas, this solidity, it's intoxicating to women who have matured beyond surface-level attraction. But instead of standing in this power, what do most men over 45 do? They look at a 28-year-old with his Instagram followers and gym body, and they try to compete on his terms. They dress younger, talk younger, apologize for not being younger. And in doing so, they abandon the only battlefield where they have absolute superiority. They trade a kingdom for a chance to be a court jester. Quality women aren't looking for a man who apologizes for his maturity. They're searching desperately for a man who owns it, who weaponizes it, who understands that masculine power doesn't peak at 25. It compounds over time like interest in a well-managed account. Let me show you how this mistake manifests in the real world, in the small moments that seem innocent but are actually relationship assassinations. The apology for your age doesn't always come as a direct statement. Often, it's far more subtle and therefore more damaging. You're on a date and she mentions going to a concert or new club, and you respond with, "Oh, I'm probably too old for that scene, but we could..." Apology. You're looking at photos together and you point to one from 10 years ago and say, "That's when I still had all my hair," with a self-deprecating laugh. Apology. You frame your career experience as being from a different era, rather than hard-won expertise. Apology. You joke about reading glasses. You comment on younger men at the gym. You reference "back in my day" as if your day is over. Every single one of these moments is a small surrender, a microtransaction where you trade your masculine authority for a laugh, for perceived relatability, for protection against rejection. You think you're being humble, self-aware, realistic, but you're actually giving her permission, even instruction, to see you as diminished. You're directing her attention to your perceived flaws and asking her to evaluate you through the lens of deficiency. Here's what you need to understand. Women don't want that job. They don't want to talk you into valuing yourself. They want a man who has already decided he is enough and communicates that through unshakable quiet confidence. If what I'm saying is landing like a punch to the gut, if you're recognizing yourself in these patterns, then you're exactly who needs to hear this message. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what's coming next is going to completely transform how you see yourself and how women see you. Don't let another quality woman slip away because you're broadcasting the wrong signal. Subscribe to Psychautumn and let's rebuild you from the foundation up. There's a conversation happening in the female world that most men never hear, a truth women discuss among themselves but rarely articulate directly. Women are attracted to men who occupy their power without apology. Let me repeat that. Without apology. On a biological level, women are wired to detect confidence as signals of genetic quality and survival capability. But here's the nuance most men miss. That detection system is incredibly sophisticated. Women distinguish between fake confidence and real bone-deep certainty about one's own value. A 25-year-old who's confident because he hasn't been tested yet? That's untested confidence. Shallow. No roots. A man over 45 who has been through divorces, business failures, health scares, real adversity, and emerged still standing, still building? That man's confidence is forged in fire. Unshakable because it has already been shaken and survived. This is the confidence women crave at a cellular level. This is the fortress they want to take shelter in, but you must own it. Walk into every room with the quiet assumption that your age, your experience, your scars are assets, not liabilities. When you genuinely internalize this, women feel it. They read it in your body language, your eye contact, the slow, deliberate way you speak, your refusal to apologize or seek permission to exist at full volume. The moment you apologize for your age, you tell her biology you are not the fortress. You are just another insecure male seeking validation, and her attraction dies instantly. Imagine a massive oak tree. In spring, it's covered in fresh green leaves. In summer, it provides shade. In autumn, magnificent colors. In winter, it stands bare but unbroken, its structure revealed, its strength obvious. Would that oak tree apologize for not being in spring when autumn arrives? Would it try to glue fake leaves on its branches to pretend it's still summer? Absurd. The oak moves through seasons with total acceptance, knowing each has its own power, its own beauty. Yet this is exactly what men over 45 do. They apologize for being in autumn when some woman has spring on her mind. But here's what you're missing. Quality women, mature women worth building a life with, they're not looking for spring. They've had spring. Spring is beautiful but unstable, all potential and no proof. They're looking for harvest season, for the man who has cultivated something real and lasting. Your 40s, 50s, 60s, these are your harvest years if you've planted the right seeds. This is when your investments in character, skill, wisdom, and self-mastery pay the highest dividends. You have to understand the season you're in and own it with ferocity. A man in his masculine autumn doesn't chase energy, he generates gravity. People orbit him because his life has weight, meaning, structure that took decades to build. This is infinitely more attractive to a woman of substance than all the youthful enthusiasm in the world. Before you misunderstand me, let me address a common trap. Some of you are thinking, okay, so I should lean into the silver fox thing, be the distinguished older man. No, that's still playing the age game, still making your age the central feature of your identity. The silver fox archetype is just another prison, another role you're trying to fit into for approval. Here's what I'm actually telling you. Stop thinking about your age at all. Stop making it a factor. When you meet a woman, you're not a man in his 50s. You're a man, period. A complete human being with interests, goals, standards, and a life that runs on its own schedule whether anyone joins it or not. The mistake isn't in how you present your age. The mistake is in presenting your age as relevant data in the first place. When you walk into an interaction thinking, I'm 47, so I need to, you've already lost. You're negotiating from perceived weakness. You're accepting the frame that age is a problem requiring a strategy. Contrast this with a man who simply lives his life at full intensity, working on his business, his art, his mission. He takes care of his body not to look younger, but because he respects the vessel that carries him through life. He pursues his interests with passion because life is short. This man doesn't introduce himself with his age like it's a warning label. He just exists, fully and completely, in his power. When a woman asks his age, if she asks, he tells her the number the way you'd tell someone the time. I'm 53. No qualifier, no explanation, no defense. Just data delivered by a man who knows data doesn't determine value. This is the part where most men shut down because it challenges everything society has told them. But you're still here, which means you're different. You're ready to break the conditioning. If you want to be part of a community of men who are rebuilding masculine authority in a world that's forgotten what it looks like, subscribe to this channel right now. Drop a comment below telling me what resonated with you. Your engagement helps this message reach the men who need it most. Don't be a spectator in your own transformation. Join us. Let me tell you about Richard. Richard is 58, an architect with silver hair, reading glasses, and a limp from a motorcycle accident. On paper, he should be invisible to attractive women, but Richard dates stunning, intelligent women in their 30s and 40s regularly. Not because he's rich, not because he hides his age, because Richard has sovereign self-possession. When Richard walks into a room, he doesn't scan it to see who's looking. He occupies space the way a king occupies a throne, not with arrogance, but with quiet assumption that he has every right to be there. When he speaks, it's measured and deliberate. He doesn't fill silence with nervous chatter. He offers his thoughts as gifts. I asked Richard his secret. He said, I stopped negotiating with reality 15 years ago. I'm not young. I can either spend my energy mourning youth or building something youth could never build. Depth, character, real competence. I chose the latter, and women worth knowing are starving for exactly that. This is sovereignty. Richard operates in a completely different market where the currency is substance over flash, depth over energy, wisdom over enthusiasm. In that market, he's wealthy beyond measure. The women he dates aren't settling despite his age. They're choosing him because of everything his age represents. The battles fought, the self-mastery achieved, the emotional stability. These things cannot be faked. They can only be earned through years of conscious living. Here's what changes when you stop apologizing for your age and start owning your masculine maturity. You shift from being a consumer in the relationship marketplace to being a builder. You're no longer asking, will she accept me? You're asking, does she meet my standards? Can she match my depth? Is she worthy of the legacy I'm building? This psychological shift is seismic. Suddenly, you're not on trial. She is. Not in a judgmental way, but in the natural evaluation that happens when a man of substance decides whether to let someone into his carefully constructed life. You have a mission, goals, a vision for your next 20, 30, 40 years. The question isn't whether you're good enough for her. The question is whether she adds value to the empire you're building or whether she's a distraction. Quality women respond to this energy like a compass responds to magnetic north. They feel the difference between a man who's begging to be chosen and a man who's choosing. The first is repulsive at a biological level. The second is irresistible. When you've actually built a life of meaning and purpose, you stop caring as much about outcomes. You're not desperate because you're not empty. You have abundance not in having many women, but in having a full life that a woman would be lucky to be invited into. This is when dating transforms from anxiety-inducing performance into relaxed interview process. You're calm because you know your value. You're selective because not every woman deserves access to what you've built. And paradoxically, this is when women start pursuing you because scarcity creates value, and there is no greater scarcity than a man who truly doesn't need you but might want you if you prove worthy. Let me paint a picture of what your life looks like when you've internalized everything I've taught you. You wake up with purpose because you have work that matters. You maintain your body, mind, skills, because you respect yourself too much to let yourself deteriorate. You dress well because you have standards. You have non-negotiable boundaries. You have a social circle cultivated over decades. You have interests that fascinate you, goals that excite you. When you meet a woman, you're genuinely curious, but you're not interviewing for her approval. You're seeing if she's interesting enough to get more of your time. If she makes a comment about your age, you don't flinch, don't explain, don't apologize. You might say, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and move on. No big deal. If she seems uncomfortable with your age, you don't try to convince her otherwise. You simply recognize incompatibility and move on without resentment. Hey, I get it, we're looking for different things. I wish you well. You mean it because you're not attached to outcomes. You're attached to standards. This version of you doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't apologize, doesn't shrink. This version takes up space unapologetically, speaks truth without fear of rejection, walks away from disrespect without hesitation, and builds a life so compelling that people feel privileged to be part of it. And the women who are mature enough to value substance over surface will find you irresistible not despite your age, but because you carry it like a crown instead of a burden. If you've made it this far, you're ready for the final piece. But before I give it to you, I need you to do something. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell. This is not just content. This is a movement of men reclaiming their masculine authority in a world that's trying to strip it away. Share this video with a man who needs to hear it. The men in your life are drowning in the same lies you were drowning in 20 minutes ago. Throw them a lifeline. Now, let's finish this. You're asking yourself, I understand the problem, but how do I fix this? Let me give you the exact protocol. First, immediate language audit. For 30 days, monitor every word. Catch age references as limitations and reframe. I'm too old for becomes, that doesn't align with my priorities. back in my day becomes in my experience. Delete age qualifiers entirely. Second, inventory your life ruthlessly. Write down everything you do, wear, or consume to appear younger. Hair dye, skinny jeans, nightclubs you don't enjoy, everything inauthentic. Eliminate all of it. Burn it down. What remains is your true foundation. Third, double down on mastery. Whatever your craft, become undeniably excellent. Master your body, a skill, your emotional regulation. Depth of mastery creates an aura of capability that attracts respect automatically. Fourth, ruthless boundary enforcement. List your non-negotiables. First boundary violation. Address it calmly. Second time, you walk. No threats, just action. Fifth, build a life you don't need to escape from. Create daily existence so aligned with your values, so full of meaning and purpose that you don't need a relationship to validate you. When relationships become enhancement, not necessity, you transform from supplicant into king. You have a choice. Continue apologizing for your age, watching quality women lose interest, or decide right now that you're done. Decide that the years you've lived are not a curse, but a gift. That your experience is not a liability, but a weapon. You are not too old. You are not past your prime. You are entering the most powerful phase of masculine development if you have the courage to own it. The woman you're meant to build a life with is looking for a man who has become fully himself through time, trial, and conscious choice. Be that man. If this message hits you, take the next step now. Subscribe to Psychautumn, your headquarters for understanding attraction psychology, building unshakable masculine authority, becoming the man quality women pursue. Hit that like button so this reaches more men suffering in silence, apologizing their way out of relationships they deserve. Drop a comment. What are you stopping apologizing for today? You didn't find this video by accident. You were ready for the truth, ready to claim your masculine inheritance. Don't waste this moment. The next chapter starts now. Welcome to your sovereignty. Welcome to your power. Welcome to reality. See you in the next video.